real quickly, let's link this to a release, and as you can see by clicking on that link at the top, that takes us to the tab section here at the bottom. So from here, we'll just new link to release. So here's our releases, and this is part of the rebuild of the North American email system. So now that we have linked that, we can come back here and see that, and if we wanted to take a look at that release, this gives us the ability. So here we have our release record. From here, again, we have documented processes, but more importantly, we have the release manifest. So here's an example of all the changes that are happening as part of this release, and I'm able to identify the order in which they need to occur all through the manifest within release management. And it too, I'm able to see that in the change schedule as well. So what we've seen is really a full comprehensive cycle where we've registered incidents. From that, we noticed that incident was related to an existing problem, so we did the appropriate linkage there. From the problem management, after we've identified the root cause, we can utilize those workarounds to resolve the incident, but more importantly, we can suggest what changes need to occur and then bundle those as part of release as necessary. And again, one of the foundations between all of these items would be the configuration management database. So we can certainly see those assets within the CMDB and identify the relationships between those assets in a graphical display, as well as just seeing the raw statistical information about our data as it relates to those assets in terms of who's the primary owner and things of that nature. So with that, I'd like to wrap things up so we have plenty of time to handle or take any questions that there might be. A couple of other points I'd make here in the application. We also have broadcast, which basically a broadcast would allow us to see items in a scrolling ticker if we wished. You may have noticed that back here on the self-service page, where a customer would have access. So let's log in here as Peter Campbell. And so you can see, any outstanding issues that there may be for that may have been already identified. And actually, my browser got a little bit mixed up here. So it still thinks I'm logged in as Ron Hill. But so with that, any questions? I guess at this point, Dick, if we've got some questions that might be queued up, I will be glad to take those at this time. So,
okay, great job, Ron, and I really like the way that you demonstrated that whole integrated change incident asset problem and release management. One of the things that came to mind and we do have a couple of questions queued up, but one of the things that I was thinking about is, if you've ever been in a big organization where there's going to be a scheduled change or a scheduled release, sometimes the IT department might forget to notify the users about this, right? And so you come in and you realize that the Exchange server is going to be down, and you were surprised, right? Because you didn't know that. So I guess the question is how would these changes be notified to the users in an organization? How is Remedyforce set up to do that?
So here again, you can see on the self-service page where we have these broadcasts that we can utilize for those types of alerts. And so that's one way. As a customer logs into self-service, they can see the scrolling ticker as a broadcast. Also, there is a notification engine within Remedyforce. So as we identify these types of failures, if we want to send email notifications to our customers, we certainly have that option. And another option that you have, because of the flexibility and the capabilities in terms of the APIs for Remedyforce, Force.com, we can actually create, for example, a web service that would pull this data and publish that to an intranet site, that type of thing. So again, using broadcast, using email notifications, those are all methods that we can, inform both staff members and customers of these upcoming and post changes.
Okay. I've got to ask another question too. I was visiting a customer on Monday, and we were talking about asset management, and they were getting ready to sort of roll out some new processes. And so we started talking about asset management. I said, well, you probably are seeing some amount of assets that are just leaking out of your organization. And the IT director said, leaking? It's like somebody turned on the faucet and they're just flowing out of the organization. So right. I guess, the question is obviously we want to prevent that, right, if that's happening. But and this might really be better answered in a separate webinar. But I guess the question here is, how do you get going on something like this? And I think maybe one way to start would be to try to compare what you have with what you think you have. Is that a good way to start?
It is, and so that's where we begin to realize the importance of our configuration management database, and so that's one of the purposes of that is, right, it tells us what we have, what the relationship between those assets are, those configuration items, I should say, but what the relationships between those configuration items amongst them, between themselves, as well as the customers that they support. So this is what we think we have, and then we can also utilize tools like the ScanStar solution that we've obviously have developed, and that allows us to go to an asset, scan it, and see, okay, one, is this assigned to the right person, right? And there's interesting things that we can do with our auto discovery tools as well. So as an example, when Asset Core does its inventory, well, if it hasn't seen that that a machine is checked in, or it's not been able to inventory that machine in the last 6 months, well, we can simply run a report on that, and those might be devices that we could potentially have a problem of that they've walked out the door. And because our configuration management database is up to date, we know who had it. So, if it was stolen, well, why didn't you tell us about that? Or, what's going on? So there's really, asset management. There's no. I always tell customers there's no easy button. It's definitely one of the things that it will take a great level of thought and support on if you're going to do it well. But there's a number of solutions that really are needed, and that's barcode scanning solutions, auto discovery solutions, as well as just a database such as the configuration management database. And keeping that, it's not enough just to populate a CMDB as well. You have to keep that information up to date. So that's where your ScanStar solution and auto discovery products really come into play and can assist an organization. By the way, I'm sorry, Dick, but if you have questions, please go to the Q&A section there in the WebEx or even the chat, and Dick will get those to me.
Right.
So,
okay.
Questions?
Well, let's do that. We have keep those questions coming in. The first question here is, we would be interested in how this product would handle a preventive maintenance type of workflow.
So there are a couple of ways that you can do that. The product itself, there is not a preventive maintenance module like there was, for example, with Service Desk Express. But essentially, that's actually one of the things that we are considering and looking at RightStar, whether we should develop something like that as a small add-on to Remedyforce. But you also would have the ability to use the integration engine and use workflow rules so that you're regularly polling the database and looking for records that are of a certain age, or you have tasks that you've identified that are of a certain age to create new tasks. So those are some things that we can do, but again, there's not a preventive maintenance module per se within the application, but there are some things that we can absolutely do to assist in that area.
Thank you, Ron. Next question here is, can incident forms be customized? Can different groups have different forms assigned?
Absolutely. So there is a great deal of flexibility with the customization. Let's see, did I log in here I'm logged in as administrator now. So as we look here at, for example, our incident form, it's really just a matter of editing the layout. A couple of things to point out for those of you that maybe have done some custom work in your current service management solution, or whether it be Service Desk Express or another vendor. A couple of things to point out. One, you can make database changes on the fly, so you don't have to kick everybody out of the system, which is, again, a testament to the multi-tenant platform that the product sits on. You can modify the forms and so forth by dragging and dropping fields, and it's really very simple to manipulate. But also there is a true sandbox environment, which, for example, you could have a development sandbox, a test sandbox, and a production environment. So literally, I can make my changes in my development, package those up, move them to test them. If they pass the test, package them up again, and move them to production. So a very nice sandbox functionality that's part of the platform. And again, you have the ability to create as many forms as you wish and assign them to different groups, and even to segment the data if you needed to with the use of roles. Okay. Other questions?
Okay. We just got one more, and this will probably be our last question here.
Okay.
Does this integrate with Active Directory to create new clients?
Absolutely. So we use a third-party utility called Pentaho, and Pentaho allows us to bring on-premise data and push that to the cloud. So much like what you'd expect, you'd have the ability of doing an ADSI query against Active Directory, and then moving those records or creating records in Remedyforce as needed. So as you update records, those updates can occur automatically. Creating new clients in AD will automatically create clients and staff members in Remedyforce as well. So yes, in that Pentaho integration engine, it's not only used for Active Directory, it supports web services, ODBC connection, flat file connections, and so that allows us to bring any type of on-premise data and push that to the cloud. So, I guess if you said that was the last question we had, I know we're out of time. So
right.
I want to thank everyone for attending, and thanks, Dick, for having me. And
sure.
I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you, Ron, for your time and expertise today.